Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Viewers, we're standing in front of the gate of the chapel of Agapimony, which was the abode of love, as they called it, for Henry Prince and John Hugh Smith Pigott. Here with me, I have Dr. Joshua Schwieso, who carried out an extensive research on the Agapimony for his PhD thesis. Joshua, first of all, I'd like to welcome you to our program.
Thank you, Asif.
And Joshua, if you could tell us, first of all, to start with, what was the motive behind the research? What led you to carry out this research on Agapimony?
Oh, three things really. First of all, my long-standing interest in religion and minor Christian sects. Secondly, pure chance. I moved to the area and bought a house just up the road. And thirdly, I was looking for a subject for my PhD, and this I realised the Agapimony had never been properly researched. Much of what was written about it was hearsay or outright fiction, and for that reason, it seemed luck and need came together.
As much as I've been able to go through your thesis so far, I've picked that you are more focused on the socio-psychological, I should
Yes,
call it,
indeed.
the socio-psychological side of this cult.
Yes.
What have you found while researching?
They think that the cult attracted a particular sort of person. They were they were generally well off. People who had time on their hands. They were looking for a cause, I think, really. And the Agapimony offered them an ideal cause for well-off Victorians, in as much as it was about religion, it was about community. They retreated to this community. It provided a sort of a rather comfortable living, I think one could say. And also it met their anxieties about the second coming, an anxiety which had become very strong in Britain. In the late 18th century, a number of cults had arisen which focused on this notion of the second coming. This had been obviously a Christian concern right from the days of Jesus, but in the late 18th century, the social changes underway in Britain and America in particular seem to have prompted a wave of evangelical Protestants who attempted to calculate when Jesus was expected to return. The figure given by many was somewhere in the 1840s. Prince, the founder of this group, seems to have picked this up, and the chapel behind us was actually opened early in 1845. The buildings of the community were built within the same year, and the intention seems to have been that they would retreat into this community. Over the next, I suppose, 50 or 60 years, the group sat tight, so to speak, waiting for the coming of Christ, but he never came. Smythe Pigott and his followers represented a new movement, a new wave of enthusiasm and funds, one can say. This led to the Smythe Pigott to build his own chapel in Clapton.
Okay.
And when Prince died, Smythe Pigott then was able to make this quite new claim that while Prince had only said that he was the forecomer, the John the Baptist to the returning Messiah, Smythe Pigott was able to say that he was the fulfilment of Prince's prophecies, and he was the new Messiah. And that's at the point when he got into controversies, and not only with the press, but also with the founder of your own religion.
Right, Joshua. And now initially, obviously, it was a claim of being the second coming of the
Yes.
Messiah. But then we see that he moves on to making very bold claims of being God. But then, obviously, because of the pressure that was built on him, because
Yes.
of the warning sent by the founder of our community as well, we see that he does sort of refrain from those claims and goes
Yes.
down to milder claims. So would you like to say something about that?
Yes, I mean, I think he realised that there was danger of him being prosecuted under the blasphemy laws, which strictly only protect the Church of England, but was obviously relevant in this case. And it also, his personal situation, he was living in with a woman who was not his wife, Sister Ruth, apparently with the happy participation of his wife. When he moves down here, his claims are always moderated. I think the rather flowery language he used enabled him to make claims that could be read in many different ways. So if you wanted to read them in a sort of sense of divinity, you could. If you didn't care to read them, or if he wished to deny that he was claiming to be God, the way he phrased things, the circumlocutions, enabled him to do that. And the Agapemone, although it did issue sort of what you might call publicity statements occasionally, these were always of a very circumspect nature, as I think you've realised.
Absolutely. But on the contrast, we see that before this, the claims were very boldly made and very much
Yes,
publicized, isn't it?
that's right. Yes, yes. I mean, they're still a little unwise. I mean, but not generally about his divinity. When his children are born, he invites the local registrar of births, marriages, and deaths in to certify, and to record this. And it's that action which enables the Church of England to eventually expel him from the ranks of their clergy, because he had violated a canon law. He was living with a woman who was not his wife and had fathered children by her. And that was their proof. They were able to prove this, that it was him who had broken the church law in that respect.
Right. But obviously, before he was defrocked by the Church of England, he definitely had made his claims moderate and taken back his claim of divinity.
He'd backed off and retreated from these claims.
Joshua, we see that Smythe Pigott passed away in 1927.
Yes.
Is that where the group came to an end, or was it with the death of Ruth? But I mean, what was the end of this group?
The end of the group occurs really, I think, in the late 1950s, and it's not so much a bang, but as T.S. Eliot says in his poem, more a whimper. They simply fade out. The last old ladies move elsewhere, and the property is broken up and sold for a building development. Whereas Prince's community had been dynamic originally, and he probably had, in the 1840s, 1850s, 600 to 1,000 followers in the area, as well as not all of them here, spread out across the West Country. Smythe Pigott, apart from his group in London and another group in Reading, seems to have never sort of managed to build a mass movement. And after he'd retreated to this spot here, it thereafter slowly shrank. They made no new converts, and so inevitably the group demographically shrank and expired. And I think the last member of the group died in the early 1990s. I was going to interview her. She had given interviews to no one, but someone who knew her well persuaded her to give me an interview. And the evening before I was due to interview her, she died. So I never got to know, to speak directly to someone who had been a member of the Agapemone.
So that is how it all came to
That
an
is how
end.
it all came to an end.
Okay. Thank you ever so much, Joshua Schwieso, for being on our program.
Thank
you
you
very much.
very much.